Have you ever needed to get someone to do something really important, but they just don't care? For example, maybe you work in sustainability and you're trying to encourage a local government to take more action to reduce their carbon emissions, but they're so under-resourced and overstretched that carbon emissions is just not a priority for them. Or maybe you work in finance, and at the end of every month, you spend hours nagging every single employee in your company to submit their monthly expense report because they keep forgetting to. Or maybe you work in learning and development, and you're trying to encourage your company's leaders to take a new inclusivity training more seriously, but they just keep forgetting about it. This is a surprisingly common issue that I come across, with a simple yet surprising solution that I'll share with you in this video. Hi, my name's Janie, and I'm a leadership storytelling coach, and my focus is on helping purpose-driven leaders inspire positive change. If you'd like to learn more about my coaching and workshops, then you can check out my website at thestoryhabit.com. And if you find this video useful, then a like and subscribe would be greatly appreciated. So let's get into the video. People don't care about the log blocking their path up ahead. They also don't care about the storm approaching them from behind. And they especially don't care about the stranger looking lost over to the side. All they care about is the stone in their shoe. This is a simple but harsh reality of human nature. This is why, for example, people in developed countries happily go about their lives without a thought for all of those people experiencing poverty, famine, and war in distant lands. Those issues are simply not the stones in their shoes. The average person in a developed country is far more concerned with managing the stresses of their day-to-day jobs, paying their bills, and looking after their family. Those are the stones in their shoes. And in the example I gave earlier of a learning and development department rolling out an inclusivity training program for their company's leaders, this is likely to be ignored if it has nothing to do with the stones in those leaders' shoes. Those leaders are far more concerned with hitting their deadlines, managing their team members, and getting ready for their annual leave. And this is one of the biggest reasons people fail when it comes to changing minds. They're simply not thinking of their audience. They're just thinking about themselves. If you want to change someone's mind, you have to first relate to the stone in their shoes. And relating is an important word here. In 2022, I published the book, The Story Habit, in which I present a storytelling framework that can be used in everyday communication. And that framework is called Relate, Challenge, Resolve. And what I've found is that most people's attempts to change minds start with challenge. They basically start by saying, "You're wrong, I'm right. Here are all the reasons you're wrong, and here are all the reasons I'm right." And you've probably seen this play out on social media on a daily basis, and it's never successful. What is successful, though, is when people do enough relating before challenging. If I were to try and persuade a group of leaders to take inclusivity more seriously, I'd start with a strong concern most managers have at the moment, which is attracting and retaining young talent. I'm actually noticing managers all around the world right now really struggle with generational differences. The younger generations are coming in and expecting workplaces to be more inclusive of their unique needs, be those physical disabilities, neurodiversity, cultural needs, or even just things about their personality. And when they don't feel their needs are being considered, they will go straight to the next company. So for these leaders, I wouldn't even frame this training program as being about inclusivity. I'd frame it as being about attracting and retaining young talent, because that's what this audience cares about. So remember, before you even try to challenge their thinking, you must first relate to the stone in their shoe. When you've related enough, you gain permission to challenge. Here, we are challenging their current thinking and encouraging them to think in a different way. So think of this as being a gap. And we have their current thinking and we have the desired thinking. And in between, we have a gap. And actually, mapping this gap on a piece of paper is really handy. On the left side, write down their current thinking. On the right side, write down the desired thinking. And in between, leave a gap. Now in this gap, we can brainstorm ways to bridge it. So with the leaders in our example, their current thinking includes a lot of biases that cause them to ignore and reject certain needs that this younger generation might have. So we write that in the left column. In the right column, the desired thinking, we want them simply to gain awareness of the damage their biases are causing. So how do we bridge this gap in particular? In my experience, the two most powerful ways of bridging gaps are through stories and experiences. So for example, we can tell stories about exit interviews with young talents who used to work for some of the leaders in this room and who jumped to a competitor and the reasons they gave for jumping to that competitor. We could show reviews of the company on websites like Glassdoor. We could show videos of recruitment experts talking about the trends they are seeing with young talent and the reasons young talent would choose one company over another. When it comes to experiences, these can be even more powerful. For example, you could tell people who are wearing a certain color of clothing that for the next hour, they are not allowed to sit on chairs and ask them how that feels. You could also simulate the experience of being extremely sensitive to noise, like some people with autism are, by blasting recordings of office chatter at full volume for a while and then asking people how they feel afterwards. You could also try bringing in several wheelchairs, if you can get access to those, and challenge several of the participants to spend the entire day, even the entire week, working in the office using a wheelchair. Just saying things is not going to be enough. You have to give them reasons to genuinely care. Stories are a great way of doing this, but an even more powerful way is to let them experience something and reflect on what that means to them. The last part in my Relate, Challenge, Resolve framework is the resolve part, which is all about resolving any barriers to action. Here's another simple rule of human nature that we all know, but for some reason ignore when it comes to persuading other people. And that rule is, the harder something is to do, the less likely people are to do it. If something requires too much effort, too much time, too much money, too much concentration, or even too much learning, it will be far easier to just go back to their old ways. So whatever we want people to do, it must be easy. This is why so many adverts online simply ask you to click here. Clicking here is very easy to do. It's so easy to do, there's hardly anything in the way, and so people just do it. So this is another common problem I see when people try to persuade others. Their ask is just too complicated. If we go back to this example of inclusive leadership, this inclusivity training, what exactly is the ask here? If the ask is, be more inclusive, that's not going to succeed, because what on earth does that mean? How can I be more inclusive exactly? How will I know if I am being inclusive? This ask is far too vague, which means people will have to invest time and energy on their own into learning how to interpret this, and that's all too much friction, and that will get in the way. A more successful ask of these leaders would be this: once a week, ask each team member, how can I be more inclusive? That's very clear, it's very specific, there's no interpretation required, and there's very little effort required to actually do it. What's more, this is the first step on a path to change. By asking that question, they learn ways they can be more inclusive, and then they can start practicing those new ways, and that will start to influence others. And it all starts from just one little step. And this is the final point I want to make here. Change is a path, and action is just one step. Asking them to walk the whole path at once is intimidating, and intimidation is friction, whereas asking them to take just one step is frictionless. And if we focus on just that one step, that will lead to the next step, which will lead to the next step and the next step, and before we know it, they've walked the whole path and they've successfully changed. So there we have it. Relate to the stones in their shoes. Challenge their thinking by using stories and experiences to bridge the gap between their current thinking and the desired thinking. And resolve any barriers to action by getting them to take just one simple step on a pathway to change. Thanks for watching this video, everyone. I really hope you found it useful. If you'd like to learn more about my workshops, my coaching, my book, or even my online course, then check out my website at thestoryhabit.com. And if you found this video useful, a like and subscribe would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.